Good evening, and thank you for sustaining a long day. I will try to be short, and I want first to thank the Higher Council, UNICEF, for recommending Ana Aqra to this conference, and in particular Shams and Khalid for taking care of all the logistics of my stay and my travel. And thank you all and all the presenters all through the day to highlight in particular what we've been doing for the last 10 years in particular, although we are a 22 years old organization, but for the last 10 years we've been focusing on teaching literacy within the public school system and outside the school for children who are going through crisis or who had dropped from the school system. Before I start with the presentation, I want to answer Mrs. Shams on Mrs. Samira on one of her questions when she said, what do you do with teachers if you tell them you want to be the psychologist, the teacher, the caregiver? And our answer to them, just be yourself. Just be who you are. As a people, as a person, we are caring people and we do respond to the needs of others. So inside the classroom, teachers should not make this split. And if coached well, if supported well with follow-up and given constructive feedback, they will be able to do miracles. Our approach is a bottom-up approach. For the last 20 years, we've been in classrooms promoting reading to install the love of reading as a mean to access knowledge, in particular to respond to the needs of the developing and the technological revolution that we are facing. But we were faced with the real knowledge that most of the children, they reach grade 4 and they don't yet know how to read. Even those who read fluently, they don't understand what they are reading, whether in Arabic or in English or French. And in Lebanon, our system depends on 2 languages, Arabic and English or Arabic and French. And French and English is a language of instruction of math and science. So children are struggling in their learning how to read. Their basic literacy is not at the level of allowing them to access the knowledge the curriculum requires them to do at any grade they face. And we have dropouts as early as grade 4 and majorly at grade 7. Since 2012, our first pilot of teaching literacy took place in 2010 with Lebanese students in the Lebanese public schools in one school with 33 children. And we eliminated the factor of the public school teacher because the principal, the teachers, even the ministry, they were against that some of the problems exist with the system. It exists at the level of the child and their families, because the public school in Lebanon is attained by most vulnerable communities in Lebanon. We have a big private sector for education in Lebanon that's competing for better quality, so parents are afraid to send their children to public school. Only 27% of the total school children go to public schools. So we wanted to prove that, okay, this is not a child and their parents' problem. We brought certified teachers from the private school who worked for only 6 weeks with these children who became extremely aware of their learning. And by learning, we are focusing on the metacognition and the learning about learning. We are making children aware of how they learn to read and when they read, what the brain does to understand the content they are reading, and to transfer the knowledge of reading across subject matter. If you see this bus, this is an alternative solution for a classroom, mobile classroom, to reach out for children in the settlements for the Syrian refugees, in particular those who are far away from any close by public school that they can attain. And also this classroom and a bus work as a place to host children in school for remedial hours after school. Now, lately, we have many schools, almost 250 elementary schools, acting as dual shift, so we don't have the space and capacity to host children for remedial if they needed extra hours for their learning, so we used the bus as a choice. As I mentioned, we have almost 40 to 60% repetition rate, dropout prior to completion of grade 9. We have out of school 400,000 refugee Syrian children ages 3 to 18. We have dropout rates among Syrian children as high as 70%. And this is mainly because the language of instruction is English and French, and they've back home in Syria, they never been exposed to the second language before grade 6, so they become frustrated and they drop out from school. That's when they have access, because most of them until now don't have access because of scarcity of space, limitation in human resources and in funds. Our approach is child-focused, child-centered. We implement inside the public schools, although we are a non-formal program. We have an agreement with the Ministry of Education to give us approval to use the premises of the public school for 2 reasons: to build the capacity of the public school teacher and for sustainable results and sustainable investments. All the resources we bring into the classroom stays in the public schools to be used during the mainstream when we are not allowed to intervene, but the teacher who works with us during summer program or in the after hours can access those resources and can implement the same pedagogy that we train her on or train him on. And parents and community at large are our main partners. We empower them, we encourage them to be involved. We have a parents awareness program with the psychosocial support to prevent violence and to engage parents as supporting their children to continue their education and to value their learning. As I said, any reform or any phenomena cannot be done just based on research and theories. It has to be done with the actual needs and actual resources. We raise the right funds to equip each and every classroom we work with leveled stories, and this is how we encourage literacy. The child in the public school have textbooks and teaching reading in one paragraph for a whole week, repeating this paragraph. The child tends to memorize that paragraph and not know reading independently in other text. So our solution was to provide the classroom with leveled class library that contains Arabic level books and English or French level books. It depends on the language of the school. We were the first to involve ourselves in an initiative led by the Arab Thought Foundation to start the children's literacy leveling books, because we found lots of resources in English and French of stories that matches the child's ability to read at certain level, but there was almost none in Arabic. This is our teachers training. It's very engaging and very active. We model to the teachers what we want them to model to their children inside the class. And most of the 1,500 teachers that we trained so far, they admit to us that this is the first time they sit in an active training where it's actually brought to the reality how to do group work. Everybody would tell them group work is extremely usable. Have children learn from each other, but they don't know how to do it. How to do assessment, and we base our teaching on assessing every child, and this is how we model for them during the training, and we give them all the tools that they trained on and all the resources. Plus, we give them the monitors and logistic officers to follow up on their implementation during their implementation, because we know we cannot learn from a 5 days training or 6 weeks training. So working with us for 6 weeks during the summer or 12 weeks during the fall or the spring for 2 hours every day in the fall and spring and 4 hours every day in the summer. We call this a practicum for those teachers. Although it's still happening outside the formal system, but teachers are carrying on these practices into their mainstream practice with their day-to-day teaching. In 2014, Kitabi project led by World Learning with a fund from USAID contracted Ana Aqra to be the implementing partner for Component 1, which it's a development program focused on increasing or improving the learning outcomes in Arabic, reading in Arabic, across 260 public schools. And this year, we, after training the trainers at the Center for Development and Research at the level of the ministry, and training the coaches and the monitors from the inspector department, we've been able to accompany them with their visits, but we were not allowed to enter the classroom. They entered the classroom. Thus far, within only 4 months of intervention, the feedback from school principals, teachers, and the students and the community at large, the learning community at large, was impressive. As I said, this approach is adapted or based on the Columbia Teachers College Readers and Writers Workshop. It's the balanced literacy approach, where we have to follow the global and the phonics teaching of literacy, and where we have to remind the child all the time that this knowledge you're gaining or this reading skills you are gaining, you have to practice and transfer across other subjects, whether math, science, or social studies. So we train the teachers on how to meet the child where she or he is. Prior knowledge is extremely, must be acknowledged by both the child and the teachers. Children come to us as learners already. They have experiences and they have skills that we need to nurture and we need to build on. To know what they are able to do, we have to run the assessment. So all the instruction has to be assessment-based. So the teacher will plan her lessons. They have to be purposeful and she has to be flexible, or the teacher has to be, I'm using she most of the time because in the early elementary in Lebanon, most of the teachers are female teachers. We use the Just Right book to practice the learned strategies, as I mentioned before, the leveled literacy through illustrated stories. And we use high-quality stories, high-quality books in both Arabic and English, so children could use all kinds of reading strategies to understand what they are reading. Instead of the teacher always giving them the end results, they're teaching them the process of, rather than how to get to the understanding of a text. We set attainable goals with the child to improve their reading level, the learning outcomes, so the child is aware of his or her level inside the classroom and is aware where he needs to be. Although in Lebanon we don't yet have the benchmark for reading at a grade level, in particular the grade 1, 2, and 3, Kitabi project that we are working on with World Learning at the moment is the one to set up this benchmark, and we are running the IGRA, the early grade reading assessment. We contextualized the tool with partners from the ministry, and we ran the first assessment, first baseline on both cohorts in year 1 and in year 2. And in 2017 and later in 2018, we will have the end line. And based on the findings, we will almost be able to say what kind of expectations we have for children to read at grade level for grade 1, 2, and 3 in the elementary schools. We plan mini lessons with one teaching point. The teacher has to be the facilitator inside the classroom, and we train them how to become the facilitator. They still lead the class. They are still the planner. The final say comes to the teacher, but the student is a partner in the teaching process, and the teacher set a 7-minute to give her lesson with very clear instruction on what to do, how to do it, and why we are doing. We emphasize a lot on make sure that a child understand what they are doing now, why they are doing it, and how they can do it now and always, whether outside in the life to solve their problems or at any other classroom. In Lebanon, it's very important to mention that we don't have a classroom teacher from grade 1 up, we have subject teachers, and it's extremely difficult for the teacher and the students to deal with 7 different teachers coming on board, dealing with the same group of children every 7 hours per day. Conference is the heart of the workshop, where the teacher, based on the assessment and the continuous observation she's making, she confer with a child at a time or with a group of children that they meet. They have the same needs or they are excelling at the same rate to push them further. Lots of people, they think that these kind of approaches are only meant for struggling readers or struggling students, and the contrary, it helps also the students who are excelling in their classes. And the hour or the day or the 4 hours of the summer program or the 2 hours of the remedial would look something like this. Every day will start with a circle time where the social and emotional skills are built. Speaking and listening, if we are talking about learning the language and learning how to read, are emphasized in this meeting. It might take 5 minutes or it might take 15 minutes, depends on the need of the teachers and the students. We are flexible with the program. However, we need teachers to be flexible themselves. At the beginning of implementing, with any newly trained teachers, we see like a robotic implementation. And sometimes we are happy that they got what should be done, but we are scared that they don't have ownership to be flexible and to be motivated to create their own ways of activating the classroom. But with the feedback, the constructive feedback, and we have once a year we do the best practice teachers workshop, where we invite almost 100 teachers from those who participated with our program as an exposition to expose to others their best activities or best lesson plan or best class management they did. And in our training, we integrate those lessons learned from the teachers, and we give credit to those teachers. And this is why the teachers are becoming more, they're trusting this approach, trusting the organization, and they see hope, because within their normal teaching career, they don't see a career path in front of them. You could teach for 10, 15, 20 years not knowing what's next, unless like an opening for a coach, then you have to leave the teaching and go to the coaching, but it happens haphazardly. It's not clear to them what to expect. Then comes read aloud, where the teacher reads a mentor book to the child, and through read aloud, she prepares to start her lesson, and through think aloud, she show or model to the children how her brain is working while reading. So the children are aware also of the activities or of the brain activities that takes place while we read. So it's all about getting aware of the cognitive and the metacognitive brain activities that the child will be confident to start learning and engaging in learning and trusting themselves. This is the 5 minutes. That's plenty of time. After the lesson, we have the independent part, where during the independent practice, the children, before the independent practice, the teacher will give them like couple minutes to do active engagement. By active engagement, she has to get feedback from them to make sure that they understood the instruction, they understood the lesson, they understood the strategy, and then she set them up for their independent practice. And this is that little child, that's a KG child who is sitting comfortable, confident that he can open a book and read even the pictures. That's okay, we can read pictures. And then, you know, be persistent about their learning. This is the conferencing. It happens while the children are doing their independent work. The teacher will schedule her children for either a one-on-one counseling or conferencing, or a group for guided group work. All the strategies that are taught, the teacher will hang them on a chart, anchor chart, to reinforce those strategies if the students have missed on them. So the teacher doesn't become the only resource the student need to go to. Those charts are there. They stay for a time that's enough for the children to be able to retain and sustain the knowledge or the strategy they learned about. And it's very important to do a closure for each and every lesson they carry to reinforce that what we learned today, you can use it in your life and you can use it in other content area. And math and science during our summer and remedial program are integrated through the literacy workshop. Those are the independent learners that we want them to be, proud and happy. And we tell teachers, just have fun. Teaching is fun. It is hard work, but it is fun. And it must stay fun for both teachers and students. This is the psychosocial program that we integrate. Every day, the students will have half an hour of psychosocial activities. Every week, they will have a project. They work on a project, 1 hour a day, and they present the project at the end of the week. So hands-on is brought upon. The parents, as I said at the beginning, they are our main partners. They come to our meetings twice per month, and they come in large numbers. That is impressing even the ministry, who were given up on getting parents involved. And even if they are illiterate, parents are willing to participate and willing to support the teachers inside the classroom with the recyclable resources, with helping telling stories. We tell them, we learned, we are a culture of telling stories. We don't need to read it if I don't need how to read, but tell your child the story so they understand the sequencing, they understand how you begin a story, how you end the story, and then you are participating in their learning. This is our impact through the Syrian crisis. We had served up to now over 27,000 children through the last 3 years, since 2013 until now. In blue is our achieved, in yellow is our target, and everybody is wondering how can we do it. We are still the lowest cost-effective with high-quality program since the Syrian crisis had arrived. We work with children who never attained school or who dropped out from school for 2-3 years. And a pilot study done by the ministry, in particular the Center for Research and Development, on sampling, random sampling of children who attended non-formal programs. And they found and they announced that children attending Ana Aqra programs had scored at 80% of their literacy and 100% of their math knowledge. We work in all governorates in Lebanon. We have 6 governorates. We have only 1 main office in central Beirut, but we have extended our field work. And as I was sharing with one of my colleagues, that even at the executive level, even the board of directors are field workers. Ana Aqra started 100% on volunteering. We're still running a school spirit among almost 30 schools every year, only run by volunteers. Only 3 years ago, I became a staff. I volunteered for 6 years before I became a staff. Our executive director also just this year joined the executive team. She was the volunteer for 9 years and the head of board for 4 years. And why we have staffing now? Because we are scaling up. And UNICEF, our main partner, and we can't thank them enough, they build our capacity on institutionalizing Ana Aqra to become an organization working hard with the Syrian refugees and supporting the public school system to become the school of choice. And children learn best when they feel safe and happy, and this is what we are trying our best to have them feel that way with their teachers and their parents and their administrators. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to take your questions.